Hi, I'm Angel Nightingale. Welcome to Tales Around the World. This is one of my many stories I've written and other interesting videos. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on very interesting videos. Enjoy. Have a beautiful day to each and everyone.
Roselyn's Curse, A Tale of Love's Redemption by Angel Nightingale. Once upon a time, there was the most beautiful princess named Roselyn. Princess Roselyn had the most beautiful long black hair and eyes as blue as the sky. Her skin was white as snow. She was loved by her mother the queen and her father the king. She was also loved by the kingdom and beyond for her kindness and generosity and loving and caring and kindred spirit. But one day changed everything for Princess Roselyn. The queen died in a tragic accident, on her returning back to the kingdom, when Princess Roselyn found out that this accident wasn't an accidental death and that the people responsible was none other than some homeless people who was not satisfied with what the queen had offered to them: clothes, shoes, shelter. But these few homeless people was greedy, so they waited in the bushes for the queen carriage to pass. Then they set a scarecrow in the middle of the road, which caused the horse to get scared, and the horses, racing in fright, ran off a cliff, killing the queen in the process. This news Princess Roselyn learns changed something within her, and she grew to hate all homeless people. Princess Roselyn and the king mourned the death of her mother. Princess Roselyn cried day and night for months. One day Princess Roselyn took a walk outside the palace. She went to the market, bought some fruits, and was heading back to the palace when an old woman in rags pulled the hem of Princess Roselyn's dress. Princess Roselyn normally would be kind, but because she was in pain of how her mother passed, it made her bitter towards homeless people. "What do you want, and who gave you the right to touch my gown with your filthy hands?" The old lady replied, "Please, miss, can get some food and water." Princess Roselyn decided to take her anger out on the beggar. She had drinks in her bags that she purchases. Open the drinks and pour it all over the old woman beggar. Then she started to stone the beggar woman with the fruits she had purchased. The old beggar woman stand there and took all the princess abuse. When princess finished her attack on the old beggar woman, she turned to leave, feeling a bit sorry for what she did. Then the old beggar woman called out, "Miss." Princess Roselyn turned around and the old beggar woman said, "I put a curse on you. You will be a hideous beast. Everyone will hate you and hunt you down, and you will die alone and unloved. Only if one can see your beauty within and fall in love with you and true love kiss, only then would the spell be broken." With that last word, Princess Roselyn turned into the most hideous monster you have ever seen, with horns and fangs. She no longer looks like a human being or any princess. Princess Roselyn, in a horrified state of what just happened, flee to the forest in panic, scared that someone will see her and hunt her down. Princess Roselyn ran deeper and deeper into the forest. She found an old, abandoned mansion on top a high mountain. Princess head up the mountain, now have hoofs where she once had legs and claws for hands instead. She struggled until she reached the mansion. She looks through the dusty windows to see if any live in the mansion, but there was no one in or around the mansion. Finally, Princess Roselyn built up the courage to get into the mansion. Surprisingly, the door was not locked. Roselyn enters the gloomy mansion with dusty windows and spider webs and bats flying here and there. It was like a horror scene. Princess Roselyn started cleaning as much as she can. She used her claws and mouth to move things around and throw stuff out of the mansion in a pile and then sweep the entire mansion. Then she found some rooms that had beds that still was in good condition. She dust and clean. Exhausted, she collapsed one of the beds. The next morning, Princess Roselyn opens her eyes. Being so exhausted, she didn't realize she slept the whole night. She saw an old dresser with a mirror. She ran to the mirror, hoping this was just a bad dream, only to see herself as a hideous monster. She screams, but it came out like a growl. She collapses to the floor crying. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the king sent his guards searching for Princess Roselyn. The guards searched the whole of the kingdom and beyond, but Princess Roselyn was nowhere to be. Days, weeks, months turn into years, but no one knows where the missing princess gone to. Back at the old mansion, Princess Roselyn tried to adapt to her new life as a beast. She hunts for her food like rabbit and fox and other animals to eat. She tries her very best to avoid hunters from seeing her. One day, while the Princess Roselyn was out hunting, she was a bit carefree and she ended up stepping on one of the hunters' bear traps. She screams in pain, but her screaming sounded like a horrifying growl. This sounds alert the two hunters. They came rushing to the sounds that they were hearing. When they saw Roselyn, they were scared and shocked. They never saw such a beast. Roselyn saw one of the hunters reaching for his gun and managed to get her hoof free from the trap and took off running. The hunters chased behind her trying to get a good shot at her. But Roselyn was really fast in her beast form and managed to get away from the hunters for good. The hunters went back to their village, telling the story of the new discovered beast. People was amazed and yet horrified by this news. Prince Richard was a handsome man. He was strong but gentle and loving and caring, kind and generous man, a great prince. He had many fair maidens, hoping he picks one of them to be his bride and queen one day, but they are all materialistic, selfish and greedy for power. The prince doesn't want any of these maidens, because of their terrible qualities. Prince Richard got the message what the villagers sent. He got really excited and gathered his best men to hunt the horrible beast. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Princess Roselyn nursed her wounds from the bear trap. She mourns in pain. She fell asleep exhausted and in agony. When she woke up the following morning, she was astonished by quickly she healed. No more pain, no more cuts. Back in the village, the news spread about Prince Richard and his hunters going to hunt and kill the monster in the forest. The villagers celebrate, because they know Prince Richard always get his prey. He is after all the best hunter in the whole of the kingdom. Prince Richard and his men set out on their quest the following morning, bright and early. All this plot against Roselyn was unknown to her. So that very morning, she decided to go on the hunt for food, keeping closer to the mansion this time. But little did Roselyn know, she was already spotted by the prince's men. Roselyn attacks a rabbit, and as she bent down to pick up the rabbit, swoosh, an arrow barely miss her. Roselyn, startled for a second, quickly realized she's been spotted and hunted. She took off with a speed, running through the bushes and trying to hide behind trees, but was quickly spotted by one of the hunters. Roselyn, exhausted, pushing herself beyond limits, trying to keep from getting killed, keep on running as fast as she can. Roselyn reaches the mansion, but the hunters close on her trail. She gets inside the mansion and blocks the door with her body, trying to catch her breath. The hunters who were with the prince rush up the stony mountain and slip and fell to their deaths. The prince, full of grief and anger, pushed forward with new energy, determined to catch this beast and destroy it once and for all. He reaches the top of the mountain and starts kicking the mansion door to get to the beast. He said, "I will kill you, beast, if it's the last thing I do." With one more kick and body ram, they got into the mansion. Roselyn, hiding in the darkest part of the mansion room, stayed as quiet as she can, looking cautiously at the hunter. She could not help but notice how handsome he was, and he looks like royalty, so how? Roselyn shook her head out of her stupor, remembering the danger she is currently in. That handsome man wants me dead. Roselyn decided to run up to the unsuspecting man and knock him off his feet. On impact, the prince fell on his back and now face to face with the hideous beast. He was in shock, then he was in terror, trying to reach his gun with his free hand, but the gun was way out of reach. The prince then realized he's the one in danger and he can be killed at any moment. Roselyn looking at the man under her beastly body, deciding whether to kill the hunter, but then she stops herself, realizing that this can be an opportunity to break the spell. But how can I make this man fall in love with me? Roselyn thought. Roselyn grabs the prince by his shoulder and drags him to a room, making sure there's no escape. She left him in the room yelling to be let out. Roselyn, exhausted and tired from the chase, went to her room, fell on the bed and went fast to sleep. The following morning Roselyn went out in search of fruits and food. She rushed to the room, put the food and fruits water on a tray and slipped it under the door. Prince Richard was surprised by this gesture. What does a beast know about collecting fruits and food and water and placing them on a tray? Before he can finish his thought, he heard something slip under the door again. It was napkins. What the hell was what the prince thought to himself. He stood in awe and stupor for a minute. What is going on? Maybe I hit my head on the floor. Prince Richard gathers his thought, then quickly ate the fruits and food and drank the water. Then he took up the napkins and laughed to himself, maybe I'm going mad. This went on for days, every morning the same routine. Then one morning Roselyn surprised the prince with a pants and a shirt. Prince Richard was speechless. Okay, a beast that knows how to dress up someone. What's going on here? I can't tell anyone about this. They would think me mad. Meanwhile, Roselyn made barriers inside and outside the mansion so there's no escape for the prince. She then took a bath in the nearby lake and found some dresses that the owner left behind in the old wardrobe. She found a dress that fit her beastly body and tried to brush her hair with her claws. Meanwhile, Prince Richard cleaned up himself and put on the clothes Roselyn gave him. It fit perfectly. He looks handsome in anything. Then suddenly the door opened. Prince Richard gasped when he saw the beast standing in front the door wearing a beautiful dress. Prince Richard closes his eyes for a few seconds, then open it again, just to make sure he was seeing right. Princess Roselyn gestured with her claw for Prince Richard to follow her. Prince Richard walks out of the room cautiously, looking left and right to see if he can escape, but everything is well barricaded. He had no other choice but to follow this beast. Prince Richard was surprised when he reaches the terrace, a table set with fruits, water and wine and food. What the hell? The prince thought. He was in awe. Roselyn tries sitting properly as best as she can, then Prince Richard sat opposite her. They ate silently for a while, then Prince Richard asked, what you want from me? Please let me go. I promise I will let everyone believe you are dead. Just please let me go. Roselyn stared at the prince, then she shook her head saying no with her gesture. Then she found a paper and tried her best to write. It came out scribbly, but it can still be read. It took her some time, but she got to her point. When she was finished writing, she slides the paper with her claws across the table to Prince Richard. He took the paper and read, I'm Princess Roselyn. My father is King Solomon of Evergreen Kingdom. I was cursed by a witch to this beast until I found true love and true love kiss. Prince Richard was shocked. Shock about so many things, but this beast can write. He laughs out loud. He laughed, and then he looked at the beast and saw a tear in her eyes, and then he realizes that this was a possibility. Prince Richard then asked, you really are Princess Roselyn? She shook her head, gesturing yes. The prince took a long breath, thinking if this is all a dream or if this is real or if he's going completely insane. As though Roselyn can sense his hesitation, she starts writing again. She wrote, no, you're not insane, I'm telling you the truth. Please help me. Prince Richard read the note and looked closer at Roselyn in her eyes. Then he finally believes her. Her eyes show so much love and passion and pain. The prince, I can't help you. How can you expect me to love a beast? Isn't that asking too much? Roselyn rises quickly from the table, startling the prince. She jumps off the terrace and ran to the forest. She stops by a lake and all she can do is let the tears run down her face. Looking at her reflection, the words of the prince repeat over and over again. How can I love a beast? Roselyn was devastated. but she understood why the prince would say those words. Roselyn thought to herself, "How can anyone love me? I'm a hideous creature, a monster." Roselyn rushed back to the mansion. The prince was still seated at the table. The prince turns to Roselyn and says, "I'm sorry I said those hurtful words to you. Let's take it one step at a time." Roselyn's eyes shine with tears of happiness and shook her head in agreement. The prince smiled at her and thought, "She may look like a beast, but her eyes speak to my soul." Prince Richard stayed up most of the night talking to Roselyn, and they even played chess. Every day Prince Richard and Princess Roselyn would have dinner, play chess, and sometimes take a walk in and around the mansion walls. Prince Richard started to have good feelings about Roselyn and thought it possible to love her. Meanwhile, back in the village, there's an uproar about the missing Prince Richard, and the king and the whole of the kingdom are in search for the prince. The king's best men gather and prepare for war to kill the monster and rescue the prince. The villagers prepare, also carrying pitchfork and swords. They start walking through the forest at the break of dawn. They are all angry, determined to find and kill this monster and rescue the prince. Roselyn, unaware of the new development, left Prince Richard at the mansion to get food and fruits in the forest. She heard a lot of footsteps marching in her direction. She hid in the thick bushes and saw the army of men. Then she managed to find another route back at the mansion and saw people trying to take Prince Richard by force, not quite understanding that they came to rescue the prince. Roselyn rushed forward to help the prince, and the fight begins. Prince Richard shouted to tell Roselyn to run and that they were there to rescue him. Roselyn got distracted for a moment, and that's when the man stabbed her in the chest with a sword. Roselyn bawls out in pain. The prince cries out, "No, please don't hurt her." But it was too late. Roselyn fell to the ground, lifeless. Everyone stops and yell in triumph, "We kill the beast. Yeah, we kill the monster." Then Prince Richard shout, "Be quiet." Everyone got silent. Prince Richard said, "You have made a brave mistake. That's not a beast, she was cursed by a witch. That there is Princess Roselyn." Then Prince Richard ran by Princess Roselyn's side and lift her head and place her head on his lap and talked to Roselyn, saying, "I'm so sorry, Roselyn. It's too late to tell you I love you. I love you so much." Roselyn, with tears streaming down the prince's face, he kissed Princess Roselyn on her lips and cried and said, "Please, Roselyn, come back to me. I love you, Roselyn." Then a gush of wind so strong passed through the forest and blew most of the men to the ground, and the wind picked up Roselyn's beastly body and twirl her in the air and change her back to her human body once more. She fell to the ground slowly. Prince Richard catch her in time, before she hit the floor. Everyone gathers around Prince Richard and Princess Roselyn in awe. She was even more beautiful than they remembered. Prince Richard paid them no mind, all he had eyes for was Roselyn. Richard called out to Roselyn, pleading for her to wake up. "Roselyn, please wake up. Come back to me. I love you, Roselyn." He hugged and kissed Roselyn on her lips. Then Roselyn whispered, "I love you too, Richard." The prince was surprised and looked at Roselyn's beautiful eyes. Roselyn said, "You did it. You break the curse and save my life. I love you, Richard, and I love you, Roselyn." The crowd cheered, startling both Richard and Roselyn. Prince Richard carried Roselyn in his arms, and they sat in one of the carriages. They both cuddled like kids, and the men rode them back to the village and then to Prince Richard's kingdom. Prince Richard's father, the king, was happy and relieved that his son was alive and well. Prince Richard explains everything to his father and told him everything that happened to Roselyn. The king was amazed by her story. He welcomed Roselyn with open arms. Roselyn and Richard were happy. Then the prince sent a speedy messenger to Roselyn's father, the king, inviting him to his palace. Roselyn's father accepted the invitation, not knowing the surprise to come. When he arrived at Prince Richard's palace and entered, there stood Roselyn to greet him. He was shocked and nearly fainted, but he stood his ground. He then cried out with joy, "Roselyn, my sweet daughter, you're alive. I thought I lost you forever." They hugged and cried with joy. When everyone settles down, they invite Roselyn and her father, the king, to dinner. After dinner, Roselyn explained everything to her father. Roselyn and her father spent 1 week at Prince Richard Palace discussing wedding plans for in a few days from now Prince Richard and Princess Roselyn will be married. The day arrived for the wedding. Everything went smoothly. Prince Richard, waiting for his bride to be Princess Roselyn, stood at the altar anxiously waiting to see Roselyn walk down the aisle. The music starts and Princess Roselyn in the most beautiful dress walking down the aisle gracefully with her father by her side. Her main focus was on Prince Richard and his focus on her. They both smile as they hold hands and say their vows before God and man. "Then you may kiss your bride," and so they did. Prince Richard and Princess Roselyn now married, and they all live happily ever after. The end. The moral of the story, beauty within. The redemption of Princess Roselyn emphasizes the transformative power of love, compassion, and understanding. It teaches us that true beauty lies not in physical appearances but in the purity of one's heart and actions. Despite the bitterness and hatred that adversity can breed, the story illustrates that forgiveness and love can heal the deepest of wounds and overcome the darkest curses. It serves as a reminder that judgments based on appearances can lead to misunderstandings and missed opportunities for connection. Ultimately, the story underscores the idea that love, both self-love and love for others, is the key to breaking the chains of negativity and opening the door to a life of fulfillment and happiness.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on very interesting videos. Have a beautiful day to each and everyone.